just I think picking something just because it's trendy is definitely not a good answer to that.
For your team specifically, what do you look for in a new researcher? You can talk about the tangible skills, but also some of the not intangibles, but the not
People
purely
skills.
quantitative. Exactly, yeah. You know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I think, it has to be well-rounded, right? And it's not, again, one size fits all when I look to hire researchers, because it's looking at, first of all, their individual research record, right? What have they done in the past? But also, how are they presenting that? How did they go about deciding why they picked this problem? Why did they go down this path and not something else? I think that's, to me, is critical. And there are many who are not always able to explain that. Right? Like, just I think picking something just because it's trendy is definitely not a good answer to that. And so what is this kind of unique aspect, right? Like, I think you were asking me earlier, why did you get into the field? And being able to kind of also methodically explain how they went about doing their research. I think that's an essential one. And then lastly, with respect to like people skills, certainly the communication, right? Like how they're able to kind of connect with everyone, and able to explain to not just researchers, but also others. I think that's critical. And also the openness, right? Like to think about ideas or being even challenged, if somebody says there's a better way to do this than what they've done. I think that openness is so critical when it comes to research, because research is a lifelong learning job. Right.
Absolutely.
So, and you have to be open-minded.
Awesome. And so one thing you said is that you look at their history of research. Does that come from their academic career? Does that come from contribution to open source, communities? Does that come from their own projects? What does that generally look like in a candidate for you?
I mean, it can be a combination of all this, right? Because, my group so far has researchers who are PhDs, but, in many of the adjacent groups, there's certainly those without PhDs, right? So it's not a requirement that's set in stone, but then, having open publications makes it easy to assess that, right? If that's not there, then you really have to go by, right, how they're able to explain, how they're able to make a case for themselves that, they were able to achieve something in a much more proprietary setting that they cannot maybe give all the details or publish about it.
Awesome. Well, I feel like I'm beating this one to death a little bit, but just one last question kind of regarding this. What advice would you have for someone who's interested in getting into machine learning research?
Yeah, so it depends on, again, which stage they are. If they are in their undergraduate studies, making sure, right, the core math classes, that they take that seriously and just build that good foundation, right? Linear algebra is so critical, right? Probability and statistics. I think that foundation is a starting point. And then online, there are so many great courses, right? There is, of course, the NVIDIA DLI, the Deep Learning Institute, that has so many variety of courses for much more hands-on, right, aspect of all the way from like preparing the data to end application, every aspect of it. We go through that. There's also open source resources like fast.ai, which has excellent material. So I think this combination of some of the core foundations and also the working knowledge and much more, like online courses that give them that ability.
Very cool. Well, I will say something. You had mentioned that you shouldn't choose research decisions because they're trendy. I went into data science and YouTube because they were the two trendiest things. So, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, you're doing a great job with that and helping the world learn more about AI, which is great.
I'm kidding. I'm
I
kidding.
mean, that shouldn't be the only reason. Let me revise that. Right?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
So they need to have something more.
Oh man.